10 things poor people waste money on. 10 ways that poor people waste their money, and see how many of these traps you might be falling into. 1. Paying for late fees and overdraft charges. Many people assume that the poor waste their money on frivolous things like designer clothes and expensive gadget. However, a closer look at their spending habits reveals that the poor are more likely to waste their money on essential items like late fees and overdraft charges. For example, a study by the Pew Charitable Trusts found that households with incomes below $25,000 are more likely to incur overdraft fees than those with incomes of $100,000 or more. The same study found that late fees on credit cards and utility bills are also disproportionately shouldered by the poor. In a world where every penny counts, these types of fees can push families further into poverty. And yet, many of the poorest Americans continue to pay them, either because they don't know how to avoid them or because they simply don't have any other choice. 2. Buying lottery tickets. Many poor people waste their money on lottery tickets in the hope of striking it rich. However, the odds of winning the lottery are extremely low, and the vast majority of lottery winners end up broke within a few years. In fact, studies have shown that poor people are more likely to play the lottery than affluent people. One reason for this is that poor people are often desperate for quick cash, and they see the lottery as a way to achieve their financial goals. Another reason is that poor people are more likely to be less educated and less informed about personal finance, making them more vulnerable to scams like the lottery. 3. Rent-to-own stores. Poor people often get a bad rap for wasting money on things that they don't really need. While this may be true in some cases, there are also many examples of poor people wasting money on things that they do need. Many people who are struggling financially tend to make poor choices with their money. They may waste money on things that they don't need, or they may make impulse purchases that they can't afford. One type of purchase that is particularly detrimental for low-income earners is renting to own items from stores. These stores typically sell items such as furniture, electronics, and appliances, and they allow customers to rent the items for a set period of time. However, the catch is that the customer will end up paying much more for the item than if they had purchased it outright from a traditional store. For cigarettes and alcohol. It's no secret that poor people tend to spend a larger percentage of their income on things like cigarettes and alcohol. While it's easy to judge people for the things they spend their money on, it's worth taking a step back to understand why they make those choices. For many people living in poverty, cigarettes and alcohol provide a moment of relief from the stress of their everyday lives. In a world where they are constantly struggling to make ends meet, these substances can offer a temporary escape. Unfortunately, they also come with a high price tag. Cigarettes and alcohol are expensive habits that often drain resources that could be used to pay for rent or food. 5. Gambling. It's no secret that poor people tend to spend their money differently than rich people. While the wealthy are more likely to invest in assets, the poor are more likely to spend their money on consumables. This is often due to a lack of financial literacy, but it can also be a result of desperation or simply bad habits. One of the most common ways that poor people waste their money is gambling. Whether it's buying lottery tickets or playing slot machines, gambling is a quick way to lose hard-earned cash. What's more, it's an addictive activity that can lead to even more financial problems down the road. If you're trying to get out of poverty, it's best to steer clear of gambling altogether. 6. Impulse buying. Most people are guilty of wasting money on impulse buys from time to time. However, for poor people, these expenses can be particularly costly. This is because they often have less disposable income and can't afford to waste money on items they don't really need. Unfortunately, poor people are often targeted by marketers and advertisers who know how to exploit this weakness. They use special techniques, such as marketing deals and bargains, to lure poor people into making impulse purchases. As a result, poor people often end up spending money on things they don't really want or need. While there's nothing wrong with treating yourself to the occasional impulse buy, it's important to be aware of how easy it is to waste money in this way. Otherwise, you may find yourself struggling to make ends meet. 7. Eating out too much. One of the most common areas where this is said to occur is in eating out. While it's true that poor people are more likely to eat out at fast food restaurants, there are a number of reasons why this may be the case. For many people who are struggling to make ends meet, eating out is a way to save time and money on groceries. In addition, poor people may not have access to cooking facilities or may not know how to cook. As a result, they rely on fast food restaurants for their meals. While it's important to be mindful of your spending, it's also important to understand the circumstances that lead people to make certain choices. 8. Not bargain shopping. It's no secret that poor people tend to have less money than rich people. But what may surprise you is that poor people also tend to waste a lot of money on things that they don't really need. For example, they may buy cigarettes and alcohol, which are both expensive and unhealthy. They may also spend money on expensive clothes and shoes, instead of bargain shopping for cheaper items. And they may take out loans with high interest rates, instead of saving up their money to buy things outright. While it's true that everyone has a right to spend their money however they want, it's important to be aware of how much money you're actually wasting. 9. Not having a budget. Have you ever wondered why some people seem to always have money while others never seem to have enough? A large part of the answer has to do with how they budget or don't budget their money. People who live paycheck to paycheck often waste a lot of money on things that they could easily do without. For example, they may buy coffee from a cafe every day instead of making it at home, or they may order takeout whenever they're too tired to cook. Or, they may spend money on entertainment like going to the movies or out to eat, rather than find free ways to have fun. While there's nothing wrong with occasional indulgences, when they become regular habits, they can quickly eat into your budget and leave you struggling to make ends meet. If you're tired of living hand to mouth, it's time to take a closer look at your spending habits and see where you can cut back. 10. Not investing in themselves. It's no secret that poor people have a lot of financial problems. They often have difficulty making ends meet, and as a result, they can't afford to save money or invest in their future. However, there are some things that poor people waste money on that makes their situation even worse. For example, many poor people spend money on lottery tickets, thinking that they will strike it rich. Others waste money on cigarettes and alcohol, which only serve to increase their problems. And still others waste money on unnecessary items, such as clothes and jewelry, when they could be using that money to pay bills or buy food. Poor people need to be more mindful of where their money is going if they want to improve their financial situation. Otherwise, they will continue to struggle and remain stuck in poverty. It's no secret that poor people have a lot of financial problems. They often have difficulty making ends meet, and as a result, they can't afford to save money or invest in their future. However, there are some things that poor people waste money on that makes their situation even worse. For example, many poor people spend money on lottery tickets, thinking that they will strike it rich. Others waste money on cigarettes and alcohol, which only serve to increase their problems. And still others waste money on unnecessary items, such as clothes and jewelry, when they could be using that money to pay bills or buy food. Poor people need to be more mindful of where their money is going if they want to improve their financial situation. Otherwise, they will continue to struggle and remain stuck in poverty. Subscribe to my channel for more tips on how to save money and get out of debt.